How do you feel is the best way to involve family members in the process that we lay out, like process program or any sort of therapeutic practice for addiction help?
Well, that's an age-old question. In your work, Zach, didn't you started out being sort of an emergency responder, didn't you? You were
Yeah.
called in when a kid had a total meltdown. Is that about right?
Yeah.
And how many minutes did it take you to think, I could come in here every day. That's what they pay me a salary for that. But am I really you take it from there. What kind of occurred to you pretty early on in your thinking?
Right. Well, when I started and I was responding to, let's say, crises, that's what people call them, emotional outbursts that were um, unsatisfactory for the environment, for a learning environment, for other people there. It was my task first, can you get this kid calmed down? Then can you get them re-engaged? And then can you decide on some sort of a consequence for them? There are consequences just happen. And I understood early on, I don't know if I could articulate it very well, that there are real natural consequences, things that just happen after you act or do something. And then there are artificial adult imposed in the school system, adult imposed consequences. And both of them are just things that happen after someone acts, and neither of them are sufficient for solving the problem that led to the difficult behavior in the first place. And so I wanted to work to figure out what is causing the difficulty in the first place. And in doing so, uh, I couldn't work only with the person. I had to work with their environment, with the
Now,
people
remember,
who
these are quite young people.
they're
So
kids,
it
right?
didn't take you
They're just
very
kids.
long to think about.
Who's teaching them? How are they teaching them? Who are they associated with? What do they feel their resources or skills are? And then that ultimately would involve, you don't just do all this work around a child without, in my mind, without involving their parents, their caregivers in some way. So a lot of that was what happens at home. What ways do you help them develop skills at home that we could replicate here? And here are some ways that we are helping teach skills here at school that maybe you could replicate at home, because there aren't just two lives, home life and then school life, and then you
It's
live
just
one or
one
the
kid.
other. One kid, one full day, one life. Yeah.
And I know you're a modest man, Zach. And so I don't know. It might have taken you 2.5 minutes to think along these lines. But then, there was a thing that you were hired to be called an interventionist, but you were successful at that. But I think your employers instantly said, when you said, perhaps we can involve their family and their teachers and the rest of their life space to see where some of this is coming from, they all said, good idea. I mean, it's not rocket. I mean, did you ever have a hard time arguing with somebody that made sense?
Yeah, because people are accustomed to whatever is standard, and the way the standard procedure of things doesn't include on a whim calling a family to ask for their input or asking the kid what they think. And there's no real model for it. So the thing that's hard for people is, how long will this take? How creative do I have to be? Am I allowed to do it? That kind of a thing.
Yeah. Why don't we end this little segment by you answering the question when somebody says that? Well, what are you talking about? It's his problem, my kid's problem, or he's whatever, antisocial. They have a million labels. And then you have to come in and say, well, why don't we perhaps talk to his parents and his family? How would you go about persuading either school authorities or medical authorities or the family that was the way you wanted to go without making anybody overly suspicious or anxious? How would you do it?
Gosh, okay. Well, I've created along the lines of Dr. Ross Greene, who has a nice model for this. I've created a model now that does this, and so I guess I did convince people to do it. And it's just working with the kid collaboratively on a few things at a time. This is really all that Ross Greene talked about, and I totally agree with him. Talked about, you've got a trillion problems, right? You're not, and anyone's pet peeve could be any one of these trillion problems. So let's think about as adults, what's making things most difficult for us? Let's just be honest. Let's tell this child that we've noticed he's having or she is having difficulty in some areas and see what they think about it. And once they tell us what they think about it and tell us what's difficult, let's work with them to say, hey, we can bend a little because this is difficult for you. We're teachers, so this is learning. And if you had difficulty with math, we wouldn't suspend you. We'd try to figure out a different way to teach you. And so let's pick 3 things and really focus on them. That seems to work pretty well. If you can get people visually oriented with that or understanding that concept, they're pretty good with it, knowing that kids will buy in to this. Not buy in. Kids will be invested in this because they have had a say. And so you'll watch them start to work things out after demonstrating good faith that you'll be their teacher and help them.
And is the name of this model the collaborative model?
Ross Greene's model, although I've adapted it and made it my own, so I can't call what I do his, but he calls it collaborative and proactive solutions. It used to be called collaborative.
I'm just going to cheat
solving.
And extract 5 things I heard you say.
Great.
First, you ask questions. Second, you're non-judgmental. You sort of say, well, how's this affecting you? Without saying, oh, it's your fault. That's non-judgmental. Then you're sort of saying, are you enjoying this yourself? They're experiencing the negativity and pain and unpleasantness. And then you're sort of saying, well, let's all think together about how we can all improve all of our lives as one. And then let's measure our success together as a group in doing this. So
almost sounds too obvious, doesn't it?
I just sort of made it up listening to you, but that's because you gave it such a key description.
That's pretty good.
So I cheated. You asked me what's the best way or when should we get the family involved? But that's your kind of jack and trade, sort of. That's your métier.
There's a good chance that, well, it's a good steal. There's a good chance that if somebody's having difficulty in school perpetually, that they have difficulty at home too. Sometimes not, because the environment is different. The relationships are different, environment's different. But if we can land on something that's difficult across domains for a kid, that's a nice way to help to get family involvement, and what people do to accommodate and teach might change from school and home. And that's a really involved way to talk to families. And alternatively, it's a nice way to demonstrate our efforts as a school when you can help. Well, first of all, when you can show what we're doing at school to help teach this skill that the kid needs to be more successful, or teach this model to people at home so that they can use it with their child. And maybe I do know a lot of people who use it with their spouses now too. So it worked. It's just a way of dealing with human beings and having problems, which you're going to have,
You've discovered the key to life, Zach. And I know you're a modest guy. Would it be fair to say you view yourself as a helpful person? Is that kind of, you like to feel that you're helping people? And you seem to have a good employment history. Generally speaking, if you help people rather than label or accuse or divide or assign them, of course, now the word we use is stigma, although a lot of the things that are supposed to defeat stigma sound to me and you like they're stigmatizing. If you can work in the opposite direction from those things, you'll probably do all right as a helper.
There's no alternative. On my best days, I'm a helpful person, and so are people around me. Hey, right now I'm having an interesting conversation with people in school. We can add that, keep this in or not, with people that I work with. When things get tough, you kind of cling to whatever you know to be a magic solution. I know you've noticed, and we in our school district, you used the word waspy before, and that's kind of what we historically were. We're pretty like middle to upper class, small town suburb Vermont, and that's the school system where you're accustomed to running up until about 5 years ago, and more people from all different cultures, value sets, people from all worldviews, all walks of life, ethnicities are coming to our school, and now we have the challenge of how do you build a community around that, and that's something I've been tasked with helping doing, and that's not easy.
I just want to pause here. You've been tapped to do that. They say, hey, they created a position and you got it to do that, what you just described.
Yeah, I'm one person who's helping do it among a group, but I am a coordinator of that effort.
And I would say collaborator, but go on. Okay.
A collaborator, coordinator is the title. Collaborator is the truth of it. And it doesn't work at the snap of finger. People are like, well, when can we get back to like when I just taught a classroom and I could say, do this, 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 and all the people did it. And so now there's a little confusion. There are some people who are aware that building a community means doing the hard work of understanding one another. And it's always work. We all have jobs to do there. Some people are like, wait, are we ever getting back to like the easy times? And so the people who are wondering, are we ever getting back to the easy times with the same standard structure that we had, are calling for further if only we took more recess away, or if only we were a little more strict with these kids, they would get it. And so I'm watching as there's a community effort happening around us. I'm watching a pendulum swing between let's reward people that they're rewarded for positive efforts and they do well, or let's punish people because then they'll know, then they'll get it. And I'll have to let you know how that goes, because I'm in dialogue with people like that right now. The reason I'm saying it is because the only thing that has ever ameliorated those calls for one easy solution or another easy solution is more collaboration. That's what we're doing is collaboration, and people are saying it's hard. And even if it's a hard sell, I'm saying, right, we have to do more of it. And the more we do, the more we'll understand, and so will everybody else.
Well, I think we can call it a day today. And what we can say is, isn't what you're just describing sort of the national? We're just dealing with addiction, individual problems, and communities, homeless communities, Aboriginal communities, prison populations, your local community. But the question you're answering, or the national questions that everybody's paralyzed by in the United States.
It's to bring it back to LPP. That's totally true, and that's we've branched out beyond. If you have a credit card and you want help, find us online and we'll help you. We've branched out to like more organizational type help. How does our model work with any kind of a population, including people who feel disparaged or on hard times, or just a population that is underserved? And that's a hill I will die on, is that people need to feel understood. You need to understand people, and you have to collaborate in a therapeutic way for sure. But even broader than that, that communities have to be willing to collaborate with their citizens, even the ones who have the most difficulty.
You've all got to go to the same school and be in the same place for the day. You might as well cooperate.
Right.
All right, Zach, that's very inspirational. Hopefully you'll be able to divvy this material up for broadcast media, and until next time.
Yeah, thanks, Stanton. It's good to be back at it.
Good to be at it.